Welcome to LSB Feasters Radio Channel and Travel Corner, where we keep great radio from the past alive. And today we're going to Pittsburgh in 1020 KDKA. KDKA on November 2nd, 2020 celebrated its 100th anniversary. They began commercial broadcasting back on November 2nd, 1920. They began as an experimental station in 1916, and they began running commercials back in November of 2020. Changed the whole industry, even though there really wasn't much of an industry just yet. After 100 years, KDKA is still one of the top stations in Pittsburgh, and all day on November 2nd, they celebrated that 100th anniversary. So here we've got some of the highlights of that 100th birthday celebration on KDKA. On this Aircheck, you will hear interviews from Jack Bogut as well as Roy Fox. If you enjoy what you hear, feel free to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel too if you like, and after you do, smack that bell, and you will be notified whenever we post anything new. All right, let's join the celebration. KDKA Pittsburgh turns 100.
KDKA AM and HD Pittsburgh, KDKA FM HD2 Pittsburgh, and W261AX Pittsburgh.
A radio.com station.
The landlord of a couple of western Pennsylvania malls filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection over the weekend.
For AccuWeather, I'm Bob Larson. 100.1 FM at AM 1020, KDKA.
It's 42 degrees at Pittsburgh International.
You're listening to the voice of Pittsburgh, KDKA Radio, 100.1 FM and AM 1020. Kind of cool, isn't it? 100 years in broadcasting, 100.1 FM. It's remarkable. Today, a very, very special day when we're celebrating our 100th anniversary. All year long, I've had the great fortune of being able to host shows on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock where we have featured different greats that have been on the air. Jack Bogut, one that we've had on a couple of times, and Jack is joining me now on the Disc Institute of Pittsburgh Newsline. And Jack, it is kind of mind-boggling, isn't it, from your first experience with KDKA with a Mother's Oats box and a crystal to now celebrating an anniversary that none of us, when we were younger, thought would be around for.
Oh my gosh, Robert! Yeah, this was way back when I was in elementary school, and a crackly, staticky voice came over a little earphone with a crystal that we got out of a Cracker Jack box, and the voice said, "This is KDKA Pittsburgh," and this was in north central Montana, all the way across the country. And who knew, as you and I have discussed before, what are the odds that I would wind up working at this radio station for 15 really great years and still be around to help celebrate the 100th?
Yeah, when you think about KDKA and what it's meant to Pittsburgh, what it's meant to southwestern Pennsylvania, and when it comes to people like you who have come from all over the country to ultimately be here, what do you think that KDKA's legacy ultimately is?
Well, KDKA is, in my opinion, Robert, the mothership. I mean, this is the frequency, 1020, that really started the whole thing all those years ago back in 1920. And KDKA has remained the standard for the broadcasting industry. Radio station has undergone many changes over the years. An awful lot of people have worked here, but the mothership has remained the same, and what it means to the community is the same today as it was 100 years ago.
One of the all-time greats on KDKA, Jack Bogut, joining us on the Disc Institute of Pittsburgh Newsline. Jack, we've gone through difficult times, and there's no doubt this election year, maybe the most difficult for a lot of people in historical memory. But you go back far enough, we've gone through these difficult times in the past, and people have looked to people like you in order to help get them through those times and to refocus attention on better things. What's your advice for everybody today?
Oh.
Anything at all?
Just hang on. I realize people's fingernails are getting short now, but just hang on. This too shall pass. In fact, beginning tomorrow, there are going to be some changes coming. We don't know whether it's going to be liberal or conservative, right or left, up or down, but there will be a change coming, and KDKA will go on and go on and go on and broadcast the news, whatever it is, and we're going to be just fine, except for COVID-19. That is the one big question mark, Robert. We just don't know how many people are going to survive this, but if we take care of each other and respect each other's space, chances are that most of us will survive that too.
Jack, how are you and Joni handling things in 2020 with COVID?
We wave through the window. Whether we're in a car or we're at home, we see neighbors and we wave and they wave back.
Yeah.
And the same thing when we go out to get groceries or maybe just take a ride to get out of the house a little bit. But, everybody in our experience is cordial, tolerant, impatient, a little bit bored. But, at our ages, we're happy just to be anywhere.
Jack Bogut once again joining us. Jack, when you think back on your career, and we only have time for one, but is there one story that stands out amongst the rest?
Boy, that's a really good question, because there have been so many high points in broadcasting for me, Robert. But I think if I had to pick just one, it would be the Children's Hospital campaign, and the way people came out of the woodwork and decided that they were going to do something for somebody else because their children were all healthy, and they let the kids go out and collect money and bring it down and tell their own stories, and sometimes laugh about it, sometimes cry about it. I remember one morning, Robert, when a busload of kids from, I think it was Indiana, PA, showed up at Gimbel's window downtown at 6 o'clock in the morning, and it was so cold outside that they brought the band, and the kids that played horns with valves had to hold the valves in the bus's exhaust pipe to thaw them in order for them to make music. And would they have missed that? Absolutely not. Everybody was just delighted to be there, celebrate the occasion, and we got to stand there and participate in all of that stuff, and it was the best.
And I love the way you mentioned that the fundraising for Children's Hospital so much was driven by people who were just thankful that their children were healthy and were brokenhearted about the parents that had children that would have to go through the illness and disease that they had to experience, and to want to help them in some small way and making it so that it didn't have to worry about the medical bills in the process. So what a great story to remind us all about at this time with COVID-19 as well. Jack Bogut,
amen.
Jack, absolutely wonderful talking to you again. I'm looking forward to the next time already.
Yep, me too, Robert. Take care.
Thank you very much, Jack. Jack Bogut, all-time great here on KDKA. And we have a complete lineup for you in the next hour. We'll wrap things up with Bob Cometz at 3:50. Roy Fox will join us at 3:35. And Mike Romi coming up in just a couple of minutes on KDKA Radio. KDKA Radio, 100.1 FM and AM 1020. Oh, my. 100 years today, and the memories just come flooding back. For me, my earliest memory of KDKA is not with a crystal in a Mother's Oats box, but it was listening to talk radio on KDKA and remembering John Cigna when he hosted nights. And Mike Pintek was on in the evenings as well back then, right before Cigna took over the morning show. And then calling in to a talk show for the very first time when I was just 13 years old to Perry Marshall as he hosted overnights. Memories that are just absolutely so fond, and you just never forget. One of the great little tie-ins to this with calling Perry Marshall when I was 13, they created a promo when I first came on full time at KDKA of me telling that story about listening to Perry Marshall and calling in and him talking to me for about 5 minutes. Like I was somebody that he really cared about what he had to say. At least he sure made me feel that way. It may have been nothing more than nobody else was on the line, and so he kept me for a while. But it felt great that as a 13-year-old calling in this guy that was just amazing to me, Perry Marshall, would give me the time of day. Well, we did the promo about that. And then when I first started on the air, that first night, I get a phone call. And the producer tells me, Perry Marshall is on hold. And I'm thinking, yeah, right. Perry Marshall's on hold to call me. Right. So I had the news director double check to make sure that was really Perry Marshall, because I didn't want somebody calling in and then saying that it was after we had these promos run for weeks and then just to bust my chops. And it so happened it was Perry Marshall. And I'll never forget the line. My, Robert, how you've grown up. And it almost brought me to tears on KDKA. And just wonderful experiences, wonderful memories. Love this station and what it's meant to me from being a teenager to what it means to me right now. I'm interested in getting your memories as well. Find me on Facebook. It's Mangino on KDKA. You can also send me a text, 866-391-1020. We'll get to your calls as time permits as well, 866-391-1020. Another great memory on KDKA is listening to Mike Romi for years. My goodness, over 10 years here on KDKA. He joins us now on the Disc Institute of Pittsburgh Newsline. Mike, welcome back to KDKA Radio.
Mangino, happy anniversary to you and all the people there at KDKA. That makes it someplace special.
It is still someplace special, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And one thing I took away from that story that you were talking about is that you can never trust your producer. They're always going to lead you astray. They've got you on the other side of that glass, and they're going to tell you anything.
Wait,
and I know you're working with Brock Snyder now, and I used to work with Brock.
Did you really?
That's how old he is.
Oh, my goodness. He's going to retire here. You think he'll retire here?
I don't know. He's got a lot heavier since the last time I saw him. So, No, I think Brock's going to die there.
You think so? Yeah. Have to carry him out. Hey, Mike, when you think back over your career at KDK, what stands out to you?
What stands out to me about working at KDKA was just given the access to the world. Because as a talk show host, when you called guests and you said, this is for KDKA in Pittsburgh, there was no question they were going to be on the program with you. In other markets, you could make those calls and they wouldn't even bother giving you a call back. But KDKA carried that weight with just about everybody in the universe, and you got that respect from people. So that, among many other stories that we shared when you called me about this before, Perry Marshall being another one. He was, when you listen to the guys at night, they were like fatherly. They were smooth. And they took their time, and just as you expressed there, that was a different kind. That's what we grew up with, and it's amazing to hear you tell your stories, Mangino, because I grew up the same way as a kid in Beaver Falls, just dreaming. And when I first started at KDKA, they were still doing music. Trish Beatty was still there. Larry Richard was doing a radio music show in the morning. So there's been a long list of transformations that have happened in the last 25, 30 years. And now, when you introduced me, you said 100.1 FM.
Yes. Yeah, for the first time, we're on the FM 100.1, and I think 100 is the perfect signal to be on, considering today's our 100th anniversary as well. Mike, I remember when I first had the opportunity to turn on the microphone here at KDKA. Oh, my goodness. I don't know that I said anything that was intelligible for the first 15, 20 minutes. It was just so much for me just to be able to turn the microphone on here at KDKA.
It is intimidating when you're first in there, because it's got the mic flag on there. It says KDKA radio. The on-air light goes on, and you're introduced with a great jingle package, and all the people who came before you that you wanted to be a part of in that business just bear down on you. And it does take a while for you to wake up and think, I do belong here.
Yes, sometimes I pinch myself and wonder if I'm ever going to wake up from this. And
hopefully you never have to. Hopefully you keep living the dream.
I'm hoping I get to. Mike Romi, thank you so much for being a part of 100 years with us today. Appreciate your willingness to come on, and all the best to you.
It's been my great pleasure. Thank you, Mangino.
I'll never forget my first night on the air here at KDKA. It was a Saturday night, and the show was from 7 to midnight. And the program director shows me the studio where I'll be sitting and everything, shows me the microphone. And they have these filter covers over the microphones, pop filters. And he said, that thing is kind of disgusting looking. If you want to, you can go ahead and take it off. You don't have to worry about using it. And I said, are you kidding me? I'm not moving that thing. Do you realize whose spit is in that pop filter? Fred Hansberger, Mike Pintek, John Cigna, Larry Richard, Jack Bogut. Are you kidding me? Because the microphone goes all the way back to the 70s. There's no way I'm taking that filter off. Leaving it right where it is. Thank you very much. Now, that microphone, it's in my home. I have a little display up like a little piece of art now as a memento. Just part of the fond memories of KDKA, and I want to hear yours as well. Send me your text, 866-391-1020. You can give me a call. Also, find me on Facebook, Mangino on KDKA. Still to come, we'll talk to former reporter Bob Cometz at 3:50. Coming up next, Roy Fox from the Fox's Den. He's coming up on KDKA Radio. KDKA, AM 1020 and 100.1 FM. Got this great text. Man, my mom and grandma were longtime listeners to KDKA. I'm 57 now. When we were kids, we would go visit my aunt and uncle that lived an hour and a half away. After a long day, we would head back home in the dark with Mom and Gram sitting up front, talking and listening to KDKA on the radio. It was always so comforting. Mom and Gram have both been gone for many years now, but I now am a longtime listener because of them. So to me, KDKA equals comfort as well as a window to the world. KDKA. What does it mean to you? Love to hear from you. 866-391-1020 with your calls and your texts, and you can find me on Facebook, Mangino on KDKA. One of the greats that have been on KDKA is Roy Fox. He was on as the Fox's Den for, about 9 years here on KDKA from the 70s into the early 80s, and he joins us now on the Disc Institute of Pittsburgh Newsline. Roy, welcome back to KDKA Radio.
So and we're talking about being great on virtually everyone. That is true. But the letter indicated they were listening to my show because I was on from 6 to 9. What's important about that is that while Bogut had to do, 4 hours, Trish was 3, our pal Palin, oh man, was he a fabulous human being. He was on 3 hours. Because I'm on 6 to 9, and management's got the good sense to carry the Pittsburgh Pirates all summer long, I worked 1 hour a day. And believe me, I made a big deal about that, too. Something about quality as opposed to quantity, right? I recollect.
I have no doubt, the way that I remember listening to you, you jammed 3 hours of content into 1 hour every night.
Well, yeah, I guess I kind of worked on that. And thinking about the 100 years, I think what's fair to say is that the biggest and greatest talent the station ever had was Reach Cordick. But I think the time period of all of the personalities as a team was the time period in which I was a part of it and couldn't believe how fabulous it was. All of us, the 6 personalities, and Uncle Ed Chauncey, of course, doing the news, we were family. We did everything. When talk about the Pirates with winning in '79, we are family. Well, that was true not just for that baseball team, and it fit perfectly for them as well, but for us. we did everything together, and we just loved what we were doing. And the listeners responded in such a way you're thinking as a broadcaster, I never thought I could be a part of anything like this. It was just great. And crazy things. Jack was able to, for our 3 weeks in the windows of the 3 department stores, and I don't think any of them are in business anymore, but at any rate, we would broadcast and people would get in line and give money, or somebody would come up and say, I own a company and my employees raised $1,500 and I'm going to double it. And the next is a 10-year-old kid that raised from his newspaper route $10.35, and then there's a choir singing. Everything about this was wrong, and it worked fabulously. And Jack always came up with a cookie. We had McDonald's giving us the coffee, and I remember the year my favorite of all of them was the Farkleberry Snickerdoodle.
That was a great cookie.
Who could come up with stuff like this? Well, Reach Cordick, before Jack, I think does anybody remember old frothing slush?
Yes.
Beer. The stale pale ale with the foam on the bottom.
Right.
I'm telling you, not only 100 years old, this radio station turned out a fabulous sound. And boy, am I thrilled to be able to look back and say, I loved it. 1 year, in the 3 weeks, in the window, we raised more money for Children's Hospital than the New York Times did in their 3-month campaign for helping the neediest. Think about that.
Wow.
20 million people are in the New York City area. There's 2 million in western Pennsylvania if you count a few chickens and horses and stuff. And there we are with those 50,000 watts. And, of course, the money came from all over the place because of our reach. My contribution to Children's Hospital was they had always closed it down at 6. And I asked if we could do it till 9. Well, the way it turned out, I would often call Cigna and say, hey, do you have a guest or can you push him off? Because I've still got about 50 people to talk to. And often he wouldn't get on the air till 10 o'clock.
Oh, wow.
That's radio, folks.
Yeah. I mean, clearly the ability to connect with a town like, I don't know any other station anywhere has been able to do, Roy. Do you think any other station anywhere else in the country has been able to connect this way, the same way that KDKA was able to be a part of the lives of so many people in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, and I think for so many years that may be true. I will tell you this. When the FCC came about, it was because you couldn't tune into a station. Good old human nature, one station would be on top of another, so they split them apart, and that's why some stations have lesser power, some stations could only be on during the day. And then they decided that the Mississippi River would be the dividing line, and everything east would be W, everything west would be K, with the exception of the stations that were on the air. They could choose what they wanted to do. And here I am, with my marginal talent. What did I call myself in the twilight of a mediocre career? At best, I worked at the 2 biggest exceptions. WHO Des Moines, that's who, and KDKA Pittsburgh. And I will, in fairness, those 50,000 watt stations, they have wonderful legacy. Do I happen to think Pittsburgh somehow had it for a longer period of time? Yeah, I do. And I've taken the time to learn the history of these various stations. And I think back, my God, all this in one lifetime. You and I were talking about what I've done since radio, and I've told people 30 years of broadcaster, 30 years caretaker of King Manor, home of a founding father, 81-year-old human being who has never, ever worked a legitimate day in his life. And I'm keep building on that as an example, especially the kids just getting started, to play their cards right or play them wrong without people knowing it.
Roy, I got to tell you this again. I told you when I had the opportunity to interview you for the hour for one of the Centennial shows, you sound absolutely fantastic. I could listen to you. If you wanted to get back in radio, I could listen to you all night all over again. Roy, thank you so much for spending a few minutes with us once again.
A pleasure. And to all of the listeners, thanks for being there. Thank you for making that station what it has been, because the listeners are extremely important to that happening. It's a chain reaction that makes it work.
Roy Fox,
thanks, folks.
Voice from the past and delivering the news on KDKA was Bob Cometz. He joins us now on the Disc Institute of Pittsburgh Newsline. Bob, welcome back to KDKA Radio. Good to have you.
Hey, thank you very much. It's a beautiful day for a 100th birthday, and you know what? I don't feel a day over 90.
Not one, right?
No, not one.
Bob, think back, if you would, with me for a moment, and your memories of KDKA and what stands out in your mind for you? Besides working with Brock Schneider.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I was just telling Brock, it's been a while since I've talked to him. And before that, it was about 15 years. So anyway, when I think about KDKA and the people that have gone before us, the people that started it, that built it and starred, if you will, in it over the years, it's kind of humbling that you're a part of this. There's a lot of people that caused it to become one of the world's biggest radio stations. Its reputation is worldwide. It's a big honor to have been a part of this for all of these years.
Once again, Bob Cometz joining us. Bob, reporting news for as long as you have, not only at KDK, but even before that. Is there ever a time when you feel like, you want to get back into it and be a part of that reporting again? Because it sounds as though you could do it tomorrow if you wanted to.
Yeah, occasionally I'll wake up in the morning and think I want to do it, but then it goes away pretty quickly. Because of the fact that I've been very fortunate and have had a wonderful retirement. I loved my job when I was there. Couldn't wait to go to work in the morning. And that was pretty much the way I felt throughout my entire career. I thought it was just a great way to make a living. And accomplish something. You felt like when you got up in the morning and you went to work, you had a purpose in life. And as you and I had talked briefly earlier today, when you love your job, it's not work,
right?
And so, but having said that, having been retired now for 17 years. It's been a great 17 years, and you and I also had this conversation when we talked earlier about how the people who that I worked with were such a big part of all of this, and so yeah, I have moments when I would like to do it again, but having this great retirement has been wonderful. Just been wonderful.
Bob, it's wonderful talking to you again too. Thank you so much. I appreciate this, just thank you. It really means a lot to me that you were willing to come on and talk for a little bit.
Well, you're very welcome.
Bob Cometz joining us on the Disc Institute of Pittsburgh Newsline. Bob, thank you very much for your time, my man. All right, here's what's really great. If you've not done so, go to our website, kdkradio.com. And there are podcasts up of all of the anniversary shows that we've done. And Bob Cometz is a part of it. Barbara Boylan's a part of it. Reach Cordick, a part of it. And all of the greats, Mike Pintek, Fred Hansberger, John Cigna. We've talked about all of them during those shows. And you can go back and listen to them yourself. kdkradio.com right there on the main page. Let's get traffic on the 5s. It's powered by Bowser. Experience the power of Bowser at Bowser Chevrolet. Scott, what's happening?